perfect business was going to fall out of the sky and hit you over the head, it probably would have happened by now. But this is how a lot of people think about how business ownership works. They tell themselves that if the right idea just shows up, everything else is going to click. The motivation, the confidence, the certainty to move forward. So they wait. And they call that being thoughtful or responsible or patient. And yet they're not getting any closer to figuring out whether business ownership is even right for them, let alone finding an actual opportunity. Now, a couple years ago, I was training for a 26-mile rim-to-rim hike at the Grand Canyon. So on the weekends, I'd go on these long hikes with my friends to prepare. And so one weekend, we drove out to this new trail we hadn't done before, and we just started walking. A couple hours in, we look around and realize we had been talking and completely lost the trail. Now, this is at a time of year when the grasses are super tall and the trail in many parts is really faint. And so we're sitting there turning in circles for a while, trying to figure out where we went wrong. And eventually one of us said, man, I think the trail's this way. So we picked a direction and we started walking. And a few minutes later, we found a trail and we followed it and we started walking down that. And about a half mile through following that trail, we realized we had sort of gotten turned around and now we're going the wrong direction. So we turned around and backtracked on the trail we came to. Eventually, we ended up hooking up with the original trail we'd wandered off. But later it hit me why that moment stuck. If we had just stood there spinning in circles, trying to be absolutely sure which way was right before moving forward, we wouldn't have gone anywhere. And I see people do this all the time with business ownership. They treat it like it's this reactive exercise, like clarity's supposed to show up first before they even act. And while that can happen, I've talked to thousands of entrepreneurs and I can tell you it is super rare. What's common is that someone who dreams of becoming a business owner actually commits to exploration. It doesn't mean they commit to becoming a business owner. They just commit to the work that's needed to figure out if a path exists that they could even get excited about. Now, that shift is simple, but it matters. Because most business owners are asking the wrong question. They're overly focused on this question of, should I be a business owner? And that question keeps them spinning in circles in what I call the should storm. They're pulled towards business ownership, but frustrated because nothing is changing. The good news is that getting out of the should storm is easier than you think. You just have to change the question. Instead of asking yourself if you should become a business owner, you start listing out all the how questions connected to how could you become a business owner? How could you figure out what kind of business is the right fit for you? How could you determine how much business you could even afford? How could you still protect your time with your family and your loved ones? How could you learn how to evaluate opportunities in an intelligent way? Now, we live in a time where access to information is almost unlimited. In fact, there's a quote I love from Bill Gurley. He's a famous investor. He said, information is freely available on the internet. That's the good news. The bad news is that you have zero excuse for not being the most knowledgeable in any subject you want because it's right there at your fingertips and it's free. The reality is you don't need a $10,000 community or mastermind. You don't need a $1,000 course to start. You just need the willingness to put in some focused effort to figure out what's possible. So here's my encouragement to you. If you're someone who's been thinking about business ownership but have not made any progress because you just aren't sure what business makes sense, block 30 minutes on your calendar. And spend that 30 minutes writing down every how question you can think of that you would need to answer to feel really good about starting or buying a business. Then pick one of those how questions to start and get to work. Start walking. See if by starting to walk, you can actually pick up a path. You might find it's not the right path, and that's okay. Because regardless of what you learn in the process, what you won't be is you won't be sitting in your armchair 20 years from now telling your grandkids that you wish you had had the courage to explore your dreams. As usual, if you got value from this, please like it and send it to someone you think it might benefit. Have an amazing week and don't quit your daydream. Cheers, y'all.